Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day quite like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find grills, canopies, jerseys, and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour, all at undefeatable prices every day. Shop Academy at locations throughout Ohio, including Zanesville, Springfield, and Boardman. Fun can't lose, and neither can you with tailgate gear from Academy, thanks to our partners at Academy Sports and Outdoors. That, of course, is Mick Walker on the other side of your screen. I am an under the weather Spencer Holbrook. If I sound a little bit under the weather, it's because since we returned from Wisconsin, I guess I woke up with a little bit of something in store for me. So it's an improvement week for everybody. I'm going to try to improve my health. Mick Walker's going to try to improve over at lettermenrow.com. We'll be there every step of the way. We did just get home from Wisconsin on Sunday. Mick, how was the trip, man?
Yeah, it's only fitting. We drove underneath the weather the whole drive back, dealt with some rain. 8 hours, we probably drove for 7 hours of rain. So Spencer decided he wanted to spend the rest of the week under the weather, apparently, or at least the first part of the week. Hopefully he gets better soon. But it was an awesome trip. Camp Brandel Stadium, despite the fact that it was, I assume, about as sorry and as like apoplectic or whatever. Like it was not very energetic for the actual Wisconsin fan base, more so to try and get Luke Fickell ousted from his job, which is kind of understandable when you see the result. But still, seeing Camp Randall Stadium, being around Madison with you and Austin and Adam King from 10 TV and Grant, his producer, like it was a whole trip on top of the game that was at least fun to watch and cover from our perspective.
Yeah, we had a good time. I think that's the bottom line. Simply put, TLDR, we had a good time. Which we try to have a good time all the time, especially when we're doing stuff here. It's the Monday after Ohio State 34, Wisconsin 0. Not a ton to break down. We'll talk a little run game. We'll talk a little offensive line. I did a rewatch. Talk to some people I trust. It's odd because the defense was so good that it's almost becoming mundane, which I think is a lesson learned that I'll get into here in a little bit. But Mick, let's start with the great, which was the passing game. I mean, what else are you going to say about these guys, man? Carnell Tate's amazing. Jeremiah Smith is amazing. They combined for over 200 receiving yards. They combined for, obviously, the 2 touchdowns from Carnell Tate. They kept trying to get Jeremiah Smith a touchdown. You saw Brandon Ennis finally get involved in the passing game, catching that beautiful touchdown from Julian Sand. And there he is, the star of the game, and I think the star of the season for Ohio State. He's just growing into one of the country's premier quarterbacks. Julian Sand was remarkable on Saturday, and I think he deserves a second look here.
I'd like to apologize to Ryan Day. I posited the question to Austin and Spencer in the car yesterday. I said, are we sure that Ohio State really just wanted to come out and pass the ball? Or was Ryan Day saying that because he did not want to talk about the run game? And you rightfully informed me. You said, I mean, if you look at the numbers, they clearly wanted to pass the ball. Upon the rewatch, you see not only were the stats and the plays that they drawn up clearly trying to take some level of shots, there was also a lot more like involvement from guys like Quincy Porter, Miley Graham, just to see if they could keep up pace in Big Ten football, work with Julian Sand. I meant to go back and check the stats, but I assume that's the most catches Bo Jackson's also had in a game. There was a lot of, can we get checkdowns to him? There was a nice running back screen, which always typically feels like it's a good play for Ohio State. I would apologize for Ryan Day for questioning him. He clearly had a plan for this game, and they went out and executed it. A+ march for the Ohio State passing game.
Well, I think one of the things that I take away from this is Saturday was maybe the clearest example yet of how to use the passing game as an extension of the run game. And I think that is just an overused cliche in most of college football. But especially it's a nice out for teams that can't run the ball well. And maybe Ohio State fits into that category. I still think that there's some things that they're just not doing in the run game that they can do and will do. But I mean, if you look at the box score, Mick, and again, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling the best. If you look at the box score, Mick, like, we don't love to box score watch, but Bo Jackson had 5 catches for 57 yards. And yeah, a lot of them were on checkdowns, but they really looked like it was just clear out the entire field, make the linebackers go back in their zone, then dump it down to Bo Jackson. And he gets 12 yards a catch, man. Like, that's an extension of the run game that just gets you easy first downs because teams have to respect the way you throw the ball. Max Clare had 5 catches. A couple of them were on little dump downs that I thought were largely extensions of the run game. Brandon Ennis had a catch that I thought was on a screen that I thought was largely an extension of the run game. James Peoples had 1 catch for 5 yards that was on a screen. C.J. Donaldson had 3 catches for 26 yards, including 2 of them that went for first down. So, like, they're getting the running backs involved, and I truly do think that when Ryan Day said after the game that they wanted to see how much they could do with their passing game, I think they were trying to figure out what they can do with the passing game that can serve as an extension of this Ohio State running game. Not to mention the fact that some of the RPO stuff that they were doing, the passes were just there. So Julian Sain took the passes for 8, 10, 12 yards rather than taking some runs that result in 2nd and 5s or 2nd and 3s. And so I'm on the rewatch, I'm less concerned about the Ohio State run game than maybe I was on first watch. I still want to see them run the ball more consistently. I want to see the right side of the offensive line be better. We'll get into Tegra in a little bit. But, like, watching the game again, I actually do think that it served them pretty well to figure out how much they can use the short passing and the running backs in the passing game as an extension of the run game as they head into November.
Especially because Ohio State, whether it's the double teams or the off coverage, like Ohio State's going to see a lot of that type of stuff. And if that's what you're going to see, you can go down the field, as we've seen multiple times throughout the season. You can go down the field and sustain a little bit of a drive, just running hitches and ends and different things where you're getting 5 to 10 yards a pop and you're getting first downs. That's clearly what they wanted to do. Like you said, they had a nice play to Max Clare where they kind of ruled Julian Sain out and dump it off to him. You get it to Brandon Ennis. He gets a little nice gain on a different play. Like, again, you said it. The extension of the run game is kind of an overused, overplayed thing, and I really do want to get into the actual run game because there's some things there that are intriguing. There's also things that feel like they could be issues if they aren't fixed. But overall, Julian saying Ryan's Day's first thing after Texas was we felt like we could have put more on his plate. It felt like they gave him the full menu on Saturday, and he just had a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And, Julian, 36 of 42, 393 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 of them to Carnell Tate, 1 of them to Brandon Ennis in the back of the end zone on maybe the best throw Julian's made all year. And then another one on a sneaky little play to Will Kesmerick for a 2-yard touchdown pass. Kesmerick's only catch of the game results in 6 for the Buckeyes. It was a passing clinic, a passing tour de force, whatever you want to say for the Ohio State passing game. Now for the run game, the traditional run game, if you will. A couple really successful stretch plays. They ran inside zone with Isaiah West, and it worked to great success. I thought the guards had their worst game of the year. That includes Luke Montgomery. I think he's got to be better than what he was on Saturday. And, I expect him to be better than what he was on Saturday. I think it's more, everyone's going to have a bad game. And if that's Luke's worst game, then maybe, he's in a pretty good standing there for the rest of the year. As for Tegra Shabola, I guess it's just time to get into it because we have to. I think it's time to probably see more Josh Padilla. He looked comfortable out there. The Buckeyes moved the ball well with Padilla in there. There were fewer missed assignments with Padilla than there were with Shabola. It looks like Shabola is getting his shoulder pads over his toes. It looks like he's overextending sometimes in pass protection. There's run blocking issues that he's got going on. I just think, he's the most experienced offensive lineman in that room right now. And he had 16 starts last year. He has 7 starts this year. You don't want to just send a 23-game starter to the bench in favor of a guy who's never started a game before. But the sample size is growing of the issues at right guard. And it's clear that Ohio State was at least open to seeing what other options could present themselves at that position. And so I do wonder if it's time for Ohio State during this off week to establish, a new pecking order there at right guard. And I really want to know if that's something they're going to do. We're going to be able to ask Ryan Day about that on Tuesday, but what are your thoughts there?
Again, I feel for Tegra because I've got to know him through his recruitment, but his play right now on the field, whether that's your opinion, your evaluation, which I obviously value, whether Ohio State's consistently said he graded out as a champion. If he grades out as a champion on Saturday, I will be surprised from his performance on Saturday. I would be very surprised. The PFF grades, he was by far the lowest offensive graded player for Ohio State against Wisconsin. And there's just a lot of metrics in which it's not run or pass, it's both that he's failing in. And I don't know the exact drives. I was going to look it up on that Will Kazmaier touchdown. I know they kind of went in, like you said, inside zone or a little bit of zone to that right side. They pulled Carson Hinsman's around. They did some different things on that drive, which I thought were good. But I'd have to double check and see if that was Josh Padilla in the game there. They had that really nice Isaiah West run in the first half where Padilla was in, and we have a great picture of it on Lettermen Row where he's just walling off the defensive tackle. And what do you know? That's when you can bounce a 12, 13-yard gain and keep moving the chains. And there's obviously a conversation we can have about the running backs, the actual talent and the emergence of Isaiah West, which I would love to have. But when it comes to just the guard play, Tager just hasn't got the job done consistently enough on a down-and-end basis to justify at least not not rotating more. Because it felt like on Saturday it wasn't really just a every other drive thing. There was like a 1-2, or like it needs to be more consistent if that's the bare minimum that's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to question what the ceiling is for this offensive line with one guy in there versus what the ceiling of this offensive line is with another guy in there. And if Josh Padilla has a higher ceiling for a longer term for Ohio State, you have to consider it. I mean, this is a program that's not just going to play somebody because they're veterans. Excuse me. Like Ethan Onyanwa is making a lot of money right now as a Rice transfer and who has started many, many games in college football. And he didn't play a down on Saturday because there are guys who are better than him on this offensive line. So like, this is not a coaching staff that's going to just defer to a veteran. You know, Isaiah West is getting first half carries on the road in a Big Ten game. Bo Jackson's the team's starting running back. Like the days of people complaining, and they were justified in some cases, of complaining about, you know, veterans playing over younger guys at times over the years at Ohio State, that is clearly and obviously long gone. Devin Sanchez is a starting corner for Ohio State right now. So like, you know, I just think that it's time to explore a little bit more of the possibilities with Josh Padilla in there, because clearly they have plans for him for the future, and they believe that he could be the best right guard on this team. And so if you think that, then it's time to give that a deeper look and to see if the bye week is the right time to make that move. If you remember correctly, and this was obviously by force, but they came out of the bye week last year and had Zen Mahalski playing left tackle and Donovan Jackson still at left guard after Josh Simmons got hurt, and it was really bad. And so after the Nebraska game, you thought Penn State was going to completely destroy them on the offensive line. They kick Donovan Jackson to left tackle. They put Carson Hinsman at left guard in a late season move, and voila, what do you know? Ohio State, you know, it runs the ball, I think, 10 straight times to close that game out against Penn State. November offensive line changes are legal. They're allowed to happen, and they sometimes can bear incredible results. And so I think that it's something that Ohio State, really needs to consider, is what is its best option long-term for this December and this upcoming January for what it wants to do with this team, if it can accomplish those goals with a certain guy, or if they should go to another guy. And again, like, this isn't just a rag on Tegra, but like this is a business, man, and this is like a big time spot. This is Ohio State. If you're not getting the job done, people are going to talk about it. And, you know, there are serious conversations are going to be had at right guard. I suspect Ryan Day will be asked about it a lot on Tuesday, and we'll find out more answers from him on Tuesday about it. The next time Ohio State is in action is against Penn State at home. You all know that. You all love that. It's going to be a noon banger on Fox.
Blackout.
Yeah, I guess it's the blackout game, even though it's going to be on Fox and in the big noon spot. I guess I'll be wearing black there. Maybe, who knows? Whatever I choose to wear up in the press box will be anyone's guess for now. But I will be there. That's the bottom line. You will be there. Lettermen Row will be there, and we would love to see all of you there. Right now, the place to go to get those tickets for Ohio State Penn State the next time the Buckeyes are in action is at gametime.co or on the Gametime app. Look, this is not a typical Ohio State Penn State game. The Nittany Lions have not defeated a Power 4 opponent this season. The Nittany Lions are 0-4 in Big Ten play, obviously. It's not pretty, and they don't have a full-time head coach. But you can go see this game, which is always just an absolute classic, for under $200. That's right. The lowest ticket right now on gametime.co or in the Gametime app is $209. And you say, Spencer, the lowest ticket is above $200. How can I get one for under $200? And I say, fan, Ohio State fan, loyal Lettermen Row listener, use the code ON3 when you check out at gametime.co or in the Gametime app and get $20 off your first purchase. That's right, ON3 for $20 off. You can pick a section. It's called a zone deal. Pick a section over at gametime.co or in the Gametime app, and then Gametime will just fill in the details for you and give you the cheapest option possible on there. It's called zone deals. It's a great thing that they do. Go to the Gametime app or at Gametime or use gametime.co right now. Go over there and get your tickets for Ohio State Penn State because they are going quickly. There's a lot of them available, but I suspect that won't be the case as we get closer to game time. There's some pretty good seats for low prices considering how bad Penn State's been this year, and I still suspect it's going to be a good challenge for the Buckeyes. Plus, you get home in time to put the kiddos to bed, to go to the neighborhood showing of whatever musical's going on in your neighborhood. You know, you get home at a decent hour because of being a noon game. Go to gametime.co use the Gametime app right now. Use the code ON3 at checkout. You'll get a lot of money off, $20 off, that is to be exact. Mick, Let's talk about this defense, man. It's pretty special.
It's quite good. And there's not really much that you could say at this point. Like I went back, like I said, I went back and rewatched some of it, and you watch like the Kenyatta Jackson sack that he had, and he was outspoken last week about the whole cage the pocket idea. We're gonna like hit like, and I think originally if you watch that play, that's more of what the design was for. He kind of just stonewalls the offensive tackle off the line, pushes them back, but then he realizes that he has an opportunity, shocks them, sheds them, and he gets a pretty easy sack. Like there's just so much natural talent. There was a lot of cool stuff they did on Saturday. I felt like with moving more, putting more guys on the line of scrimmage, moving like Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese down there. Sonny Styles was lined up on the line of scrimmage. When he got his interception, he kind of dropped off into coverage and obviously there was a tip ball, but he was still in the right place, right time because where he was aligned. And then obviously we talk about the emergence of like Isaiah West or Quincy Porter or Malik Graham. We probably need to spend more time talking about Payton Pierce too, because he's been really good for Ohio State these past couple of weeks.
On the rewatch, I think Payton Pierce was the most impressive player on the field. And that's the game where Arvell Reese had a sack, Sonny Styles had an interception, Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry each had a sack. And I still think Payton Pierce might have been the most impressive thing about the Ohio State defensive performance on Saturday. He was so good, man. Plugging holes when they needed to be plugged. He was filling in where he needed to fill in. He was on the field a lot in this game. He was a star. And I think there's a chance that you're going to see him a lot more. You know, Penn State, I don't think Ohio State's going to feel super threatened by Penn State through the air with Ethan Grunkemeyer coming to town, back to his home city, basically, to face the Buckeyes as a backup quarterback. Obviously, they're not going to be threatened by the Purdue passing attack that was just shut down by Northwestern. UCLA, I think you're going to be able to watch Nico as a runner more than you are him throwing the ball down the field. The next time that Payton Pierce shouldn't be a factor, maybe in the game plan, maybe the Rutgers game, because Rutgers just spreads you out and basically runs the air raid at this point. And then obviously the Michigan game, Pierce is going to be a huge factor. So I think the most impressive thing about Saturday with this defense, and quite possibly the most encouraging thing, was just how good Payton Pierce looked, because the back half of the schedule shows you that Payton Pierce is going to be a big factor moving forward for the Ohio State defense. Then we can talk about Big Ten championship game in Indiana. That's probably more of a 4-2-5 game, depending on what Patricia wants to do. Talk about the potential of different college football playoff matchups and whether he's going to be like a featured player or maybe like a complimentary player in those matchups. But that's getting in a little too far into the weeds. I'm looking at the regular season, the rest of it, and Payton Pierce is going to have a say in how good this Ohio State defense finishes a regular season. And so for him to show everything he showed on Saturday, I think is very, very encouraging. It's a huge step for this Ohio State defense.
The other interesting thing is I think it's safe to say that Arvell Reese is obviously one of your top three linebackers if you include Payton Pierce in that. That is a pure statement of fact. It's not really even debatable at this point. The thing that you then kind of you get into is Arvell Reese is probably one of your top three, if not your top two pass rushers, right alongside Caden Curry. And if you want him to have to rush the passer, either moves a guy from the linebacker position outside the middle of the field, and you don't have a middle of the field defender, and you don't really have a spy guy. Or what you do is you move him close to the line of scrimmage. You take one of these edge guys or these defensive linemen like D-tackle or defensive ends out, and you put Payton Pierce at linebacker, and you move Arvell Reese down. He is kind of the handicap or the fist, like I'm trying to think of the word here. He's the guy that you pair with Arvell Reese so you can get him more pass rush snaps at this point. He's the handcuff is what I was looking for. Spencer is a big fantasy football player, so he'll understand that reference. But that's the kind of the guy you pair with Arvell Reese to make sure that when you get on these big third downs against an Indiana or against a Penn State or against a Michigan, you can let Arvell Reese rush the passer because you know that Payton Pierce can drop in his zone in the middle or run up the seam with a tight end, and that's not going to be a complete bust.
Yeah. I think there's so many more things that this Ohio State defense can still get to. Man, like I think I'm writing a story for LettermenRow.com. It'll be out by the time this video publishes. The final thoughts from the Ohio State-Wisconsin game. It's three basic stats that stand out about this defense, but they tell a deeper story of just how good this team has been, and I kind of get into that. Obviously, they've allowed 5.86 points per game. That's the lowest total through 7 games for anybody since 1993 when Florida State did it. They're giving up 216 yards per game on the ground, or just per game total. And they don't play many more good offenses other than Michigan. So and Michigan is a pick your poison offense that I think Ohio State will have some nice ways to slow down. And then their third down defense, they're 21% on third down defense. Like 21% of third downs are being converted on this team. It is remarkable what this Ohio State defense is doing.
It's just there's not much else to say, and I think it's fair to say at this point that Caleb Downs had a time where he kind of got beat, or the tight end caught a ball over him. Like Caleb Downs, the secret to everybody should be that he's only about 6 foot. Like he's not the biggest guy, best college football player. He's not the tallest guy, whatever. He hasn't really been used in a ton of versatile ways. Like I refuse to believe that if we can move Arvell Reese around and do different things with Arvell Reese, if you're Matt Patricia, not we, if you're Matt Patricia, you can move him around and do different things like that. I refuse to believe that they don't have similar ways to move Caleb Downs around and get him in the middle of the field where quarterbacks might not see him, or where he can kind of roam the field a little bit more and do things like he did against Grambling where he gets that interception. There's got to be ways to unlock Caleb Downs more, just the way they've unlocked Arvell Reese, and we haven't seen much of that.
Yeah, there were a couple plays on Saturday where he was used as like a pseudo linebacker, came flying off the non-play side, the backside of the play. Backside is the correct term there. I'm an idiot. And just made a run tackle basically at the line of scrimmage for no gain, maybe even a loss of a yard. I can't remember if he got credited with a tackle for loss in the game. No, he didn't, but it was for a gain of 0. So it was just that's just as good as a tackle for loss.
Stop
For sure. Right at the line of scrimmage. There's another play where Jalen McClain did the same thing. He was almost a box player, and he came flying off the backside and made a tackle right at the line of scrimmage. The safeties are going to be more involved. They're going to continue to get in on the action. I don't call this a safety-driven defense the way we did for 3 years. Shout out to the guy that we'll see in the horseshoe here in just a couple weeks. But I do think that it's a defense that can show a little bit more versatility and get even more creative in the ways that they're using these superstars. And I know that they're going to show that against Penn State. They're not going to treat Penn State like a 3-4 outfit that's lost 4 straight games and doesn't have its starting quarterback and has a pretty anemic offense. They're going to treat Penn State as a top 10 team that took Oregon to double overtime and has just struggled a little bit since then. And it was a top 2 team nationally coming into the season. So this defense is going to have everything for Penn State. And so, I thought Wisconsin, as terrible as Wisconsin's offense is, and I mean terrible, Wisconsin needed that 50-yard drive, Mick, at the end of the game where they still didn't get any points to cross over the 100 total yards of offense for the game barrier. That's how dominant this Ohio State defense was. And again, that is fully understanding that Wisconsin has one of the 10 worst offenses, pound for pound and stat for stat, in the country. Not the Power 4, in the country. And Ohio State, even then, Ohio State didn't take them lightly, came in, handled business, forced 5 3-and-outs, less than 100 yards of total offense for the Badgers against the starting Ohio State defense. And the Buckeyes come home with an easy win in Camp Randall. Any closing thoughts on that game before we get ahead to the bye week here?
No, I'm fascinated to see what happens when you get Penn State and Jim Knowles in the stadium. Ryan Day's not typically been one, especially in these past couple seasons, to be like, I need to run it up or do anything crazy. I don't know if that's what he'll do against Penn State, but it'll just be fascinating to watch. The other thing that came to mind when you were talking there for a second is there's probably another leg you can get to with Devin Sanchez in that situation. Like if he continues to get experience and you feel more comfortable putting him in just on an island in man coverage, then you can do more interesting things in the middle of the field. So that's just another whole layer of the evolution of Devin Sanchez and how that affects the defense as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating. There's a lot that Ohio State needs to accomplish during this idle week. And I think that they're going to take full advantage of it. So the Buckeyes are done for October, which is crazy to say because the season is absolutely flying by. We're there every step of the way. Ryan Day is going to speak on Tuesday. Mick Walker and I will have full coverage of that over at lettermenrow.com, along with Alex Gleitman and Jeremy Birmingham on the recruiting side and Austin Ward on the team side. We'll have you guys covered from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center on Tuesday. We'll have the full coverage of the idle week, and then we get on to Ohio State and Penn State. It's not as glitzy and glamorous as it once was, but it's still Ohio State, Penn State, so it's going to be a big one. We'll be there every step of the way at lettermenrow.com. Come hang out with us, $1 for your first 7 days. I'm going to go get back on the medicine, see if I can get to feeling better so I can cover these Buckeyes. Mick Walker's just going to keep feeling himself, and, he's having a good time. We took him on the road for the first time. I think he's feeling pretty good after that road trip. I think he's going to feel even better the next road trip that we all take together up to Purdue, his old stomping grounds, here in a few weeks. We're going to have some fun. That's what we do at lettermenrow.com. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like the video below, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll see you back here soon. We'll see you guys over at lettermenrow.com.